So one of the things as a writer you have to get your head wrapped around, especially in something the length of a novel or a series, is that when you world build or do something that's not in the world that we all live in, you can go on for pages and pages and pages and pages of detail, and you kind of get lost in it as a writer. That's one of the advantages to working in a fictional world that's kind of close to our own. You can just kind of go, well, it's modern day, and we're going to go to war and blow stuff up like we did in that book. And it's a lot easier in some cases than trying to write fantasy books. So fantasy writers have it kind of tough. They have to choose between, do we assume that the writer kind of knows I'm just talking about a land in which there are no wizards, or do I have to let world build where there's wizards and dwarves and elves, and do I have to go through all those details? So the fantasy world has this challenge for writers in that they have to. Same for writers of things like Dracula or any of those other kind of books with vampires and werewolves and stuff. You have to kind of world build around it, and that can go into enormous amounts of detail, and the books can get quite lengthy, and it can turn some readers off. One of the things I like about Robert Aspirin, and especially these older Thieves World books, which I've been rereading lately, is that Robert Aspirin, he's in it. He's like, okay, I'll world build for you, and he's great at that. But he's a lot different than like a Gary Gygax, who will go on for half the book about world building and explaining the difference between different clans and all this stuff. Robert Aspirin gets, which big fan of Gygax. Without him, we wouldn't have Dungeons and Dragons. But as a writer, he kind of struggled. But as a writer, Robert Aspirin can world build with the best of them. I mean, he's just like, okay, I'm going to get you into this world, and we'll explain it as we go along, right? We'll just kind of assume you'll pick it up somewhere along the way. So when he dives right into these Thieves World books, which are this sort of shared universe of written by a bunch of different people, a lot of short stories in these. I think it's a 21 book series. This is the first one. Been rereading it for the first time in 30 years, probably 40 years. But he dives right in, and we see the emperor and the political intrigue at the top, and he kind of brings in a little humor along with it. So it's kind of funny. But it does suck you in. It makes you want to turn pages. So in the course of like 16 pages, he sets up the entire story. So, okay, we got the emperor. The emperor's having a bad day. Some brother-in-law or something's coming for him, trying to knock him out of position. But, oh, crap, here's the city that over here, we still have to manage the whole process of me being the emperor of this empire. And this city needs a new military governor. And now, hey, oh crap, we just learned, okay, two things. We have an emperor and we have a small city that's in need. Well, where's this small city? Well, the emperor doesn't know. He had to go find it on a map, and it was really hard for him to find. He's like the furthest point south in the empire, and I'm not quite sure exactly where, but they need our help. So he's there to help. And then we dive into that city almost immediately. And he does it in a really cute way. There's these kids running around town, and the kids are trying to pay this guy who's a storyteller to tell them the story of how the city was came to be a city. So he dives right into a lot of action. And then, of course, as the storyteller's telling the story, something breaks up the story and there's an argument. So it's a cute way to really get you into it. And that's one of the geniuses, I think, of somebody like Robert Aspirin, is he can get you into this world that he is now the editor of. A lot of other people writing these short stories, or was. I don't think they're making these books anymore. But when these first came out, he was the editor of a lot of people doing this sort of collaborative shared universe. And it really makes you want to go dig into that first one. So even in the 16-page introduction, it cranks through a lot of detail really quickly, entices the reader to kind of dive into those short stories, and he will world build along the way, which I think is a little bit more interesting way to actually approach the fantasy world than some people do. I'm not criticizing anybody by name, but I'm just saying that he does a very good job of bringing you in. And even if you're not a traditional fantasy reader, if you're more of a sci-fi reader or an action adventure reader, I write action thrillers. It still pulls you into this world, makes you want to go read that next story and the next one and the next one. So highly recommended to anybody if you've never picked these things up. This is my vintage copy. Mine, can't have it. But there are newer copies out there. It's even in an ebook now, so you can get it on Kindle. But great shared universe, highly recommended to anybody. I'm going to read the short stories one at a time and probably do videos about some, maybe all, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, enjoy your week.